guys, it's Alicia with the Garden Goddess. I am here to do a little propagation tutorial for you. I know we're all going a little stir crazy in our homes during quarantine. I hope everybody is safe and healthy. So I just figured I could give you a little project. Show you some things that I've been working on. I've got a few different propagations that I'm going to be doing. I've got some baby echeverias here right from the leaf that I'm going to be putting into a bigger pot so they can upsize. I've got some 1 and 2 inch plants that are bare root that I'm just going to pot. I'm going to show you kind of how I group them together just so I can save some space but still let them get bigger for my creations or my plantscapes or whatever I'm using them for. And then I just have a really unruly run amok kind of thing that needs to be fixed. So I figured I could show you how I would take this guy apart. So I have a container here that is really just getting unruly. The plants are getting leggy. So I'm going to use this as part of the propagations too, just to show you how these babies can look way better and how you can make new plants from these leggy stems of the echeveria. It's all propagation, 3 different kinds, types, sizes, so I hope you guys enjoy. Like, subscribe, let me know if you have any questions or comments down below. Thanks. Okay, so first one I'm going to work on is the babies that I have already propagated from leaves. I'm going to take one of these guys, just a little shallow dish. It's not even that pretty, it's just to get them growing. I'm going to fill this guy up pretty full. If you didn't want to fill it all the way up full, you could put rocks at the bottom. It would provide better drainage. There is a drainage hole here so that you can make sure everything gets drained properly. The worst thing you can do to your little babies that you have here is stick them in soil and then drown that soil in water so that they can't grow. So you just want to make sure that when you're transplanting little babies that are still this delicate, they have a good little root ball on them, and you make sure you keep the soil keep the soil at a good moisture level. Now these guys are getting pretty big for saplings, but I want to get a really big root ball, and since roots will shoot right from the stem, I'm going to bury him to about that deep, up to like the second most leaf. You can take the leaves off if you want. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Something like this where it's still got a pretty fleshy propagation leaf left, I'm just going to plant this in the soil with it. It'll continue to draw from nutrients from that leaf until they are completely removed, and it'll just continue to grow. So basically what I'm going to do with these guys is I'm going to take all these little babies that I have that are just stretching, trying to get to the sun, and I'm going to put them do a little ring around this bin here. The idea here is to give them enough space, I would say 2 or 3 finger lengths apart, so that they can size up. Because ideally you want an echeveria that is more like this unruly one. It's something that, you know, is going to be a good even circumference, and it's going to be, you know, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches depending on what type of plantscape that you're planting out or what type of garden bed you're putting in. The great thing with succulents is they're very easy to scape with. A lot of people use them in xeriscapes. They also they grow, like you can start with a very large area and a small amount of succulents, and you give that area 2 or 3 years to really take off, and those succulents will take over given the proper conditions. So it's just really cool to see them expand and grow and get bigger, and it's very fulfilling when you start something like this from a little itty bitty baby leaf, little itty bitty baby leaf, and you get a big giant beautiful plant, or even some of the large aloes that started really small in my yard that are now huge. So just all is about how you take care of your plants and babying them along Now, normally, if you wanted to, you could pull off the baby roots and propagate, but since these baby leaves on there are so little, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just planting them into the soil so that they can help keep everything stable. I've got larger plants I can propagate, big, healthy, vivacious leaves off of, so I'll just leave those guys to help their own little guys. So there we go. That's our first set of babies that we'll be working with. This is just taking it from the leaf cuttings. So it's taking something like this and sizing it up a little more, or even if you have cuttings where you've taken the top off of something, you can do the same thing. You put it in the roots. Now in this case, for something like this, I would take these two bottom leaves off before I stick it in the soil, just so I can get the roots really fully down in the soil, and it kind of makes the plant a little more symmetrical than it was before. But that's something that I would do with these. Now, would I try to propagate these? Probably not. They're a little wilty. They're not the best viable leaves, so you probably would give roots, but it's just not going to be the happiest plant. I've got so many little baby propagations starting right now. These just kind of go to the compost pile. Nothing ever gets wasted though. Compost, compost, compost. Okay. We are going to fill up this trellis. Now I am going to do a few things here. I have all of these little baby plants that I took out of another plantscape. So they're basically volunteers or little extras that grew. And I haven't had anything to do with them. I've just put them in this little bowl of water that I refresh every so often, and they're getting to the size now where it's time for them to go in the pot. So we're just going to put a couple in here, and then I'm going to show you how to take care of this unruly pot that's in front of us. And this trellis does have drainage holes. My suggestion to you is if you just use something that doesn't have drainage holes, make sure you give a good layer of rock at the bottom, and you give it a good opportunity to dry out in between, because, okay. So I've got this guy pretty full. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically put everything that I can squeeze into this pot that's rooted. So all these little guys, I've got some cuttings that are here that have roots that are ready to go into a plant. Now, my one thing that I would suggest to people who are doing propagations is know where each stages of your plants are at. So in this case, I am doing plants in this container for propagations that are already root bound or already have roots. I'll show you how to do those later. I don't want to mix rooted plants with cuttings. And why is that? Well, one, if you don't have time to let a cutting heart off, or you don't have time to let a cutting re-root out, it can be susceptible to rot. So you really have to give it time to dry out. If you're going to put it right directly in the soil, then try to make sure it's directly in a soil that's not going to get watered in a while. As you can see with all my little propagation trays, I recycle. I don't buy anything for propagation trays. I use plastic egg cartons that I've gotten from the store, or that my friends have collected from me because they know that I do this stuff. And they're just cute, they're shallow, I can reuse them a couple times, they're pretty sturdy, and I can really keep an eye on exactly what's going on with my plants. The trays are clear. It's just, I don't know, any type of plastic that I can reuse in my house before I can send it to the landfill, or if I can recycle it, I do. So just a little gardener tip there. I also reuse other little containers too. You can reuse yogurt cups, you can reuse things like that, especially if you're starting little seedlings. They really like having their own little space just to grow. So really, whatever plastics you can reuse. Make sure everything's clean, give it a good rinse so that none of your plants are susceptible to diseases or anything, obviously. But, okay, so that might not be obvious. But, just so you know, make sure you clean your stuff before you use it on your plants, just in case you don't want to give your plants any buggies or any diseases or anything like that. So I'm just taking all my little cuttings that I got. I get cuttings from Amazon, from friends, from family. I've always been told you shouldn't pay for cuttings, even though I have in the past, just because I want to get cool, new, fun plants. But, you know, here we are. If your roots are a little long, go ahead and pinch them off. Shortening the roots there will just encourage it to grow more roots, get a nice little established root ball, keep everything nice and neat. Okay, so looks like one of my little guys here is experiencing a little rot. It wasn't on the lower leaves, but it's on this leaf. So even though it's going to make the plant look not super symmetrical, I'm going to go ahead and pull it off because I don't want this to continue to damage the leaf or the stem. So we're just going to take that off. That goes right in the ground. And like I said, these guys I do want to get bigger, and they will. But since they've got mostly roots and they're already pretty established and they're a good size, they'll continue to size up together in this pot. Now, Echeveria and aloe aren't exactly on the same page when it comes to sun, but they're still small enough that I'll put them in a nice little spot on my shelf underneath my shade cloth, and we will get them rocking and a-rolling. The fun thing about this type of aloe is if you stress it a little bit, it's this really pretty red burgundy color. So giving it a little bit of sun might even be a good thing. Things that I've noticed really, really love the sun, considering I live in Florida and I get a ton of sun. The barrel cactus do really well in the sun. The echeverias do really well in the sun. They can get a little burned, you gotta watch them, but they start to turn colors in the sun, which is really fun. The donkey ears do really good in the sun. It's these guys here. These ones are really fun in the sun. They get this orangey red tip color, super cute. Aloes, not so much. Aloes like to be in the shade. These guys will get a little red in the sun. I've got some guys here that were in the sun that you can see are a little red just because they were stressed, but for the most part, they like 30 to 40% shade. That's what I have. I have an area that gets shade or sun basically all day, and then I put a little shade cloth up for the more delicate ones. So it kind of tends to like that. I'm basically just going into my little propagation bowl that I have here. What I do is as I'm working, I put all my little leaflets usually in a bowl, and then I go back through and I'll lay them on soil. Stick the root in a little bit. It doesn't have to be in super far. A baby will start there, so you just want to be gentle with it. I cannot believe even the broken subpar one rooted. I'm telling you folks, plants want to live. If you just give them the little bits that they can and they need and they want, they will do it. They'll fight really hard to do it. I'm literally just going to fill this guy up. And then I'm going to give it a nice little gentle water. In a couple weeks, or maybe a couple weeks, I don't know. I was planning on fertilizing everything today, but I don't think I'm going to fertilize the babies today. Usually I like to let them get established a little bit once they've been transplanted, because everything goes through a little bit of transplant shock. And then once they get back into that habit of, okay, I'm kicking, I'm growing, I'm good, then give them a little fertilizer, and that'll give them a big boost. Okay, so some important basics when it comes to these guys, growing wise. Don't overwater. You are better off letting it dry out completely. To the point where you think it's going to die, and then watering it and bringing it back. Now, does that make a happy plant? No, it will stress the plant out. So try to be on a pretty regular watering schedule. You don't want them to get soaked. You don't want them to stay soaked. You want to be able to kind of give them enough water so that they can use what you give them throughout the day, and the next day they're going to need a little bit more water, or the day after they're going to need a little bit more water. Usually with these guys, in the off season, depending on how much rain we get here, I can water every other day or every 2 days. And then when summer comes around, because the soil temp and the temp in general is just so hot, I tend to always try to give them a little drink of water in the morning, you know, before the sun really gets to them, because, you know, throughout that day getting beat down, if they don't have great water and they can't get down to the where the water might be, it can be tough. So, okay, so what do I got going on here? Took a little break there for a second just to get some stuff done and to work through everything that I've been working on. I've got most of our little babies that I'm going to propagate out of this thing done, and I'm going to move some more over. I've got our little plant leaves that didn't really quite have babies yet but have roots. I reorganized them and got them all set up on this tray so that they can grow nice and neat. Everything here has got enough space. I can put a few more babies in here that I'm going to do too. But this one, like I said, I'm going to try to reserve this for stuff that's already rooted. So when we go through taking apart and propagating some of this stuff, I'm going to show you a few different techniques, okay? Okay, so in a perfect world, you would be able to repot right back into this plant. Now, obviously, it looks like I'm gonna have to do some cleaning up of this pot. I will take all the leaf matter and the little bits that are left and put it in the compost. I will put this, usually what I do with my soil is I'll either recycle it or I'll put it in a container to sit, so that I know it can kind of be sterilized in the sun for a week or two, so that I just know there's no more diseases or bugs or issues in it. And then I'll use it. I'll throw it in with the rest of my mix or with my compost or whatever. Succulents are really easy, so usually I buy whatever soil's on sale and mix everything together and kind of make my own. But I think in terms of everything that we are going to go over today, that's what I got. Deconstruction of the pot. Make some new little plant babies and propagations. You take leaves or cuttings or things from the plants themselves. You can see all my little baby leaves, and then we'll get roots right from the edges of those. And then we can see our little guys that we have. These will all get way bigger in size. And I'm sure you're probably wanting to see, look at, I did some other cuttings and I put them all together. Now, another bonus tip. We see this cutting getting leggy? Okay, that means this pot needs to go out into the sun. But that's all I do. You just kind of plop them together, let them reroot, let them get their size back, and then go from there. They don't mind being squished. They don't mind being put together close. Even in arrangements, you can put them together close. I have a lot of knowledge. I've been growing food and plants and a variety of different things here in Florida for many years now. I've done plant education and tutorials out in our community, so I'm just excited to broaden my horizon and give you guys all this information. I hope you really found it informative and helpful. And let me know if you have any questions or if you want to put any comments down below. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Bye.